We were a bit confused about all the fans, or I'd say lack thereof of all the fans in Stadium 2 while Rybakina was playing. As you can see from videos and pictures, if we were to say that there are hundreds of people watching this match, that would be a stretch.
Fergus, he cannot play Rafa anymore, but if he would make like 10 times time relation to Rafa, because like you need to have some common sense sometimes.
And seeing the Brazilian fans, I mean, that's what you kind of want, you know, you want that new atmosphere. Same for Eala, having all the Philippine fans from coming, to support her.
Alex Eala and the Indian Wells effect. When one player changes everything, Tommy Haas, director of the Indian Wells Tennis Garden, finds himself navigating one of the most bizarre crises in recent tournament history, a ticket sales collapse triggered by the early exit of a single player. That player is Alex Eala. The young Filipino prodigy arrived at the 2026 Indian Wells tournament and immediately rewrote the record books. Her opening match against Diana Estrella wasn't just a tennis match, it was a cultural event. Demand for tickets was so ferocious that prices surged to levels the sport had rarely, if ever, seen. That one match alone generated a staggering $5 million in ticket revenue. The numbers told only part of the story. On the first Friday of the tournament, Indian Wells shattered its single-day attendance record, welcoming more than 58,000 fans through its gates. The atmosphere was unlike anything the desert venue had experienced: electric, passionate, and alive with the kind of energy that only a truly special talent can generate. Fans didn't just come to watch tennis. They came to witness history. For Haas, it must have felt like a dream. Indian Wells is already one of the sport's crown jewels, but this was something on an entirely different level. Then Eala was eliminated. What followed was almost as stunning as her arrival. Ticket sales cratered. Stadiums that had been bursting at the seams fell quiet. The fans who had descended on the venue in their tens of thousands simply didn't come back. The energy evaporated almost overnight, leaving organizers staring at empty seats where a roaring crowd had stood just days before. Haas, now scrambling to reverse the slide, has taken the extraordinary step of publicly criticizing the WTA, arguing the governing body failed to fully harness Eala's extraordinary commercial appeal while it had the chance. It's a bold accusation, and a clear sign of just how dramatically one young player had changed the complexion of the entire tournament.
Indian Wells set a single-day attendance record of more than 58,000 fans on the first Friday.
Desperation moves and a sport taking notice, the euphoria didn't last long for Tommy Haas. As the crowds thinned and the buzz surrounding Alex Eala's early exit grew louder, the Indian Wells director shifted from celebration to damage control almost overnight. With empty seats replacing what had been a sea of passionate fans, Haas found himself asking a question no tournament director wants to face. How do you replace lightning in a bottle? His answer, it seems, was straightforward: bring back the bottle. According to reports, Haas has been working behind the scenes to arrange exhibition matches featuring Eala herself, outside the official tournament structure, in a bid to lure fans back to the venue. He has reportedly even explored the idea of staging an exhibition before the Miami Open gets underway, a move that speaks volumes about just how much of the tournament's momentum was tied to one player's presence. Meanwhile, the broader tennis world has been watching the Eala phenomenon with a mixture of fascination and, in some quarters, discomfort. The story of her treatment at the Australian Open remains a sore point for many fans. When Eala qualified for the tournament, the WTA opted to schedule her on smaller, secondary courts rather than the main stage. The decision backfired spectacularly. Hundreds of thousands of fans queued for hours simply for the chance to catch a glimpse of her. Rather than dampening the excitement, the move poured fuel on an already raging fire. The demand grew louder, the hype more intense, and the questions about the WTA's handling of Eala's rise more pointed. But strip away the controversy, and what remains is a player of undeniable, exceptional quality. When Novak Djokovic speaks, the tennis world listens. The all-time great has been quoted remarking that while watching Eala on television is a pleasure, seeing her play live is something else entirely. From a man who has shared courts with the finest players across multiple generations, that is not a throwaway compliment. It is a genuine endorsement and a powerful signal that Eala's appeal is rooted not just in media hype, but in real, remarkable talent.
We're a bit confused about all the fans, or I'd say lack thereof, of all the fans in Stadium 2 while Rybakina was playing. As you can see from videos and pictures, if we were to say that there are hundreds of people watching this match, that would be it.
Here's the rewritten version. A clash of visions, and a bigger conversation. The tension between Tommy Haas and the WTA has moved well beyond a quiet disagreement behind closed doors. Haas is now speaking openly about his frustration, and his criticism cuts to the heart of a fundamental question in professional tennis. When a player captures the imagination of millions, who is responsible for nurturing that moment? In Haas's view, the WTA dropped the ball. Rather than embracing Eala's extraordinary pull and building around it, the organization repeatedly chose to minimize her visibility, a decision he believes has done lasting damage to the tournament's momentum and commercial appeal. For Haas, it isn't just about the revenue lost from unsold tickets. It's about a missed cultural moment that may not come around again so easily. And he is far from alone in that sentiment. Fans across the tennis world have rallied behind Eala with remarkable passion, and some of the sport's most respected voices have added their own. Among the most prominent is Maria Sharapova, the former world number one, who has spoken with particular clarity about what Eala's rise actually means. For Sharapova, this isn't simply a story about a talented young player breaking through. It is a story about representation. She noted that Eala's success carries significance far beyond her individual results, that she embodies something the sport has long been missing at its highest levels. For decades, the upper echelons of women's tennis have been dominated by players from Europe and North America. The sport has undeniably grown into a global product, but genuine Asian representation among the elite has remained frustratingly scarce. Eala, it appears, is changing that, and the tennis establishment is only beginning to reckon with what that means.
Eala, that's been a talk, and which is understandable. There's some players coming from respective countries, like she's coming from Philippines, which is now a big deal. She's been the biggest ever, tennis player from that country, which is a big country, and there's big interest.
Here's the rewritten final section. Breaking barriers and a sport transformed. Sharapova's admiration for Eala goes deeper than talent alone. She sees in the young Filipino something genuinely transformative, a player who is rewriting what professional tennis looks like and, more importantly, who it speaks to. Millions of fans across Asia who had never seen themselves reflected at the sport's highest level are now watching with a sense of pride and ownership that the game has rarely inspired in that part of the world. Eala isn't just winning matches. She is shifting the entire cultural conversation around women's tennis, and Sharapova believes that legacy will outlast any single tournament result. One last playback in the California desert, Tommy Haas is running out of options and time. With the stadium sitting uncomfortably quiet and ticket sales continuing their freefall, Haas has put his hopes on one final gambit: the exhibition match. Bring Eala back to the court, even outside the official draw, and let the fans come to her. It's an unconventional move, but given what her presence did to attendance figures just days ago, it's hard to argue with the logic. The atmosphere she generates isn't manufactured. It's organic, passionate, and as Indian Wells discovered the hard way, deeply difficult to replace once it's gone. Haas knows the Eala effect is real. He experienced it firsthand. Now he's simply trying to bottle it one more time before the tournament closes its gates. Yet underneath the scramble for solutions runs a current of genuine frustration. Haas feels the WTA has consistently underestimated Eala, sidelining her onto smaller courts, failing to amplify her growing profile, and missing chance after chance to build the kind of moment the sport hasn't seen in years. In his view, Indian Wells didn't just lose a star player. It lost an opportunity the WTA handed away without a second thought. The bigger picture of the story unfolding at Indian Wells is about far more than one tournament's ticket sales. It is about a sport at a crossroads, confronting questions of representation, commercial vision, and what it truly means to support a generational talent. Alex Eala arrived at Indian Wells as a rising star. She is leaving it as a phenomenon. Whether the WTA chooses to fully embrace what she represents or continues to keep her at arm's length, the fans have already delivered their verdict. The empty seats say everything. One thing is certain: the story of Alex Eala is only in its opening chapters. And however it unfolds from here, women's tennis will not look quite the same again.